Sentimonster. This episode was insane. We got to hear Felix sing, show us just how powerful the Peacock Miraculous can truly be, and the theories I have after watching this episode. Not only is everything literally falling into place for Marinette to be akumatized by the end of this season, but we've also now gotten confirmation that Kagami is a Sentimonster. Adrien and Marinette have officially at some point this season confessed their feelings to one another, and the fact that moving forward, Cat Noir will be no more, with Felix now having possession of Adrien's ring. And so today, we are going to be discussing everything that occurred in episode 18 of season 5, Emotion, along with an analysis on the trailer we received from Gloob for episode 16 of season 5, Protection. As always, before we get into today's video, be sure to subscribe so you never miss the tea on the show you love. Now, let's get into it. So the episode begins with Andre serving Adrien and Marinette their very own and special flavor of ice cream, and the way he was going on about how his mission on Earth has now been accomplished just had me laughing. And so as the two share their ice cream and both lean in for a kiss, they are suddenly interrupted after Adrien's phone goes off, and before I analyze any further, I just need to say, thank goodness this really was Adrien here. As soon as we received the trailer, many, including myself, were on the fence of whether this really was him or Felix, and whew, I'm just relieved. Also, the animation this episode, this season in general, has been stunning. Now, Adrien does leave abruptly here without any clear explanation, and later on when we see Marinette talk to Alia and Nino about the situation, that's when they reveal to her that tonight, his father will be hosting a society ball to which only the most powerful friends and children would be allowed to attend to. That is when we also see Kagami finish up with practice, and as Lila goes to ask her about the ball and why it is she wasn't invited, Kagami straight up goes, "You are not a precious stone, just a stone." This would explain why towards the very end of this episode we see Lila upset while facing towards the aggressed mansion. Now, I'm sure I'm not the only one who's beginning to sense this, but with the way Lila's feeling now and acting, I can only imagine with things beginning to build up that she might end up turning against Gabriel. Not to mention this end card we saw at the end of Multiplication, the thought of that alliance still being possible is something I've yet to stop thinking about. While Marinette and Zoe are in line for the movies, Zoe goes to explain why it is she won't be attending the ball tonight, to which suddenly brings Marinette to the realization as to why Adrien didn't tell her about it, as he likely thought he'd only disappoint Marinette, seeing as while she was the one to help free him from modeling, and more so being under his father's control, he wouldn't have any choice in this case but to obey. Over at the ball, while more and more people would begin to arrive, we hear Natalie go to tell Gabriel that Adrien can be with whoever he likes, when it is Gabriel goes against that, saying that at the end of the day, he has the obligation to follow orders, when Natalie says, "We'll see about that." Keep in mind, Natalie still has one of the two alliance rings. And so as Adrien finally arrives to the ball and greets Miss Tsurugi, Gabriel, and then Kagami, he suddenly gasps after noticing Kagami's ring. Towards the end of this episode, we learn that when Adrien was leaving the scene with Marinette, Felix and/or Argus lured him into one of the rooms, and from there, while using his Sentimonster, vanished Adrien, and along with that, took his ring, aka the Black Cat Miraculous. And so going back to this scene, it's hard to pin down why exactly it is Felix reacted the way he did here, but if I had to assume why, I think it may have been because he sensed Kagami's amok, as only the holder of the Peacock Miraculous can sense amuks. And at the end of episode 12, Perfection, we did receive confirmation that Kagami's amok is held within the ring she wears. With a quick appearance from Amelie in an attempt to confront Gabriel, she'd soon soon be pulled away by Natalie, where she'd go to tell her that there's always a choice, after Natalie told her she didn't have a choice when it comes to continuing to accompany Gabriel. However, we do see Natalie hold on to that thought, and from there, everyone resume onwards with the ball and getting dressed. As soon as Marinette enters on in, Chloe notices her and starts asking questions. However, she doesn't actually realize this is Marinette, hence why we see the two hanging out together throughout the ball. With our first look at Felix and Kagami, or as it seems to everybody else, Adrian and Kagami as the king and queen of the ball, not only does Kagami go to admit throughout their conversation that she is a little jealous of Adrianette because now Adrian's behaving the way she'd wish he'd done when he was with her, but as Felix goes to call her my queen, and she tells him we don't need to play puppets for our parents when they aren't looking, as Kagami too doesn't realize this is Felix, that's when we hear Felix say, "But they're still the ones pulling the strings, aren't they?" I am living for the emphasis on Sentimonsters this episode. Now, as soon as Felix says that, Kagami looks at her ring, saying that in her family, you obey orders because you choose to. This too has me wondering if Kagami has always known she was a Sentimonster. As the ball begins and the lights are shining down on Felix and Kagami, it's soon be interrupted by Marinette after she confronts who she thought to be Adrian to assure him that even though he had to attend something he didn't want to, she still sees how amazing he's doing since overcoming the control of his father and that she loves him. This scene was adorable and would have been perfect if only this wasn't Felix. But Felix, being Felix, plays along with it and goes on to dance with Marinette until it is that Marinette mentions to him how it is that everyone's staring at her like she's a monster when Felix breaks through his Adrian act and assures her that they're the monsters. But even though this was Felix, this was kinda cute. And also, my most recent video after this one was my discussion on the PV version of Miraculous, so seeing Felix and Marinette here together, and then Felix now obtaining the Black Cat Miraculous without even knowing is just wild. And if we end up seeing him use the Miraculous this season, I will freak out. Now also, as cruel as this may have been, Felix had no intention of hurting Marinette. In a world where he only accepted Sentimonsters, if it meant Adrian would be happy, then she'd be an exception, and that makes me so happy and sad at the same time. And so with the assistance of Felix's Sentimonster, and he himself transforming into Argus, we'd see him one by one snap humans out of existence, leaving for only Sentimonsters to roam this new world he created. And since the very beginning when we were first introduced to Felix, his character felt confusing, and it was because we didn't have a clear understanding of what his motive was, and why it was that every time he did something, it always seemed to have resulted in people getting hurt, such as with Ladybug and the Miraculouses, or even Adrian at times. Felix knows the consequences that come with being born a Sentimonster, and wants to do everything in his power to change that. Hence why it was since the very first episode he appeared in, Felix in season 3, he made it clear that he was after a particular piece of jewelry, and what we thought might have been the twin ring he was referring to, he might have actually been talking about the Peacock Miraculous. He only wants to help free Adrian, himself, and every other person under what feels like a curse. Carrying on though, we see Felix break into his very own song, and I have re-listened to this countless times now. It is so good, and I am so looking forward to the day we can all listen to it in the English dub as well. Throughout the song, Argus expresses how all it takes is a snap of his fingers, and soon enough he'd encounter Ladybug, to which he too would snap out of existence. However, it was all a part of her plan. Now, when Argus finally gets to talk one-on-one with Adrian and Kagami, we hear him go to say that for weeks, he'd been waiting for the perfect opportunity to set them both free, further confirming about Felix's knowledge on Kagami being a Sentimonster, and would to explain why it is in the trailer for episode 16, Protection, we can see Felix likely impersonating Adrian, and seeming to feel different towards Kagami. After Adrian and Kagami explain to Felix how unhappy they are to be in a world where all their loved ones no longer exist, and Felix soon realizing that he was unable to bring Marinette back. Ultimately, he had no choice but to bring everyone back, and from there, destroy his creation and absolutely break down. As we come to the end of this episode, we learn that Amelie has been in on Felix's plan, and 2 has been trying to help, and that Marinette, Adrien, and Kagami were finally able to share an ice cream with each other without the interruption of Andre's opinions. Not only can we expect for Kagami to have a conversation with her mother at some point this season, Lila being angrier than ever and wanting to prove her worth to Gabriel, but also possibly Marinette having a conversation with Gabriel, which I think we all can assume will not end well, and if agreed on to happen by Gabriel, could only be a plan set up in hopes to akumatize Marinette. As I've mentioned time and time again now throughout my videos, this season has major evidence leading towards Marinette being akumatized, and keeping in mind that Capelonc may be brought up at some point this season, it also brings up the idea of it re-happening, only this time in the way it was intended to unfold. No Cat Noir's identity being revealed to Natalie, nor him stopping Marinette from being akumatized. None of that. If we look back at Capelonc and when it was we'd gotten a sneak peek of 2 of the mini portals, each event that had been teased in them did end up happening at some point throughout the following season. Ultimately, the same may as well go for Marinette's akumatization that day. It wasn't the right time, but soon it will be. Plus, if we just look back at one of our more recent episodes aired, Elation, why did she almost get akumatized in that episode? Because of love, and people around her trying to force and control who it is that she can love. And now with Gabriel angrier than ever towards her, he's going to do exactly what he did back in Capelonc and force her to stop being around Adrien. If you're curious to hear more of my thoughts and theories on the situation, I have mentioned them in these videos and more, which I'll link in the description of this video. Now, as for our trailer on protection, we can see Adrien and Marinette spending quality time with one another during a picnic and on a Ferris wheel where it is we can see all of their friends there, along with Marinette rushing out, plus Kagami and Adrien here, who again I highly believe to be Felix here, spending time with one another, and Gabriel's loath towards Marinette being around Adrien to only grow stronger. Bloob did as well share the synopsis for this episode, where it goes to say, while the gang puts together yet another elaborate plan to reunite Marinette and Adrien, Lila uses her talents for manipulation to persuade Kagami that Marinette is a liar. This will explain why we see Kagami be reakumatized within the episode, and I'm curious to see what Lila gets in Kagami's head, seeing as just 4 episodes before this one in Perfection, Marinette and Kagami did have a pretty heart-to-heart discussion that would hopefully only make Kagami feel more reassured about their friendship. But I mean, we're talking about Lila, so this doesn't even come as a surprise. And now after seeing emotion and realizing just how much it is she wants to prove her worth to Gabriel, along with the fact that now she's doing everything she can to separate the people closest to Marinette, this is just compiling all too well. I know I've always been saying that I want to see Marinette akumatized. I do, but I am terrified. But as always, what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know your thoughts and theories down below, and subscribe so you never miss the tea on the show you love. And I'll see you guys in the next one.